Hi, my name is Kaylin Dolly, and I am one of the health inspectors here at the Taney County Health Department. You may have seen me out and about doing pools. Maybe I've been in your breakfast. Maybe a few of you actually have seen me in lodging. So I do lots of different things here. And today I was tasked with educating on water quality. So let's jump right in. So when it comes to what we're going to be talking about, our goals are going to be talking about managing water quality and just all of the different categories that are involved in that, tools for managing it, and then also special cases that you might run into. So this is why. Why do we care? The importance of managing the water quality is for safety. If you've watched our recreational water illness videos, it talks about all of the germs that could be lurking in your water. And so that's the first concern. The second concern is the comfortability of your swimmers. I swam for 10 years. There are some water that's really not comfortable. There's other waters that you're like, yeah, this is good. And so the four main categories for water quality are going to be disinfectant, pH, alkalinity, and temperature. So we talked about this in recreational water illnesses. Disinfectants are there to kill the germs in the water, excuse me. The most common disinfectants are going to be chlorine and bromine. Now, you're going, Kaylin, wait, I have salt. That's not listed there. So go back to high school chemistry. Salt is sodium chloride, NaCl. And so what happens is that your salt generator causes there to be a separation of those ions, and chlorine is ultimately going to be released to the water. So if you have salt water, you are a chlorine-based pool. Okay. Okay, so we have introduced these two types of disinfectants. Let's go into a little bit more detail. Bromine is really simple and to the point. Bromine, no matter what, is golden. If it attaches to things in the water, it's still bromine. It's still disinfecting. It's still working. Chlorine, on the other hand, gets a little bit more complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these three different types of forms and then give you a really cheesy analogy that hopefully will connect a little bit. So their three forms are, there's free chlorine. Free chlorine is the chlorine that's out and about trying to disinfect all of the bacteria that we talked about with recreational water illnesses. Combined chlorine has already bound itself to something. So that could be dirt, it could be pee, it could be sweat, it can be the bacteria that we were talking about. Total chlorine is all of the chlorine that's in your water. Okay, now here's my cheesy analogy. Take your pool and consider it a dating pool. And the dating pool is your chlorine. And all of the stuff in the water are all of the things that it could pair up with. Free chlorine are those single chlorines that are trying to figure out where to go and who to pair up with. Combined chlorine are already found itself a mate and bound to it, and those are things that you don't want in your water anymore. And then total chlorine's everything in your water. All of the chlorine, its coupling, it's by itself, it doesn't matter. Hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what each one is. And we'll go into further detail in the next slide about how to calculate that. So how do we calculate that? So total chlorine is equal to free chlorine plus combined chlorine. Now, you do not test for combined chlorine. Okay, there's no test to find combined chlorine. You test for free chlorine first, and then you add that third reagent, or you should be adding that third reagent to get that total chlorine. Okay, so in this example, we have our free chlorine. We've done the first two drops, we get the pink color, and it's 3 parts per million. Perfect. You add that third reagent, all of a sudden you see a color change. It's not quite 4, but you can see a color, so it's 3.5. So you take 3.5 minus 3, and you get a half a part per million, okay? You have to do that third drop in order to find out that combined chlorine. You cannot assume that you just have 0 parts per million chlorine. You have to do the third reagent in order to find it. There is no other way. You can't assume, you can't do anything. You have to use that third drop, okay? If you do it and you experience a color change, you should assume that there's combined chlorine. If you don't see a color change, then you're good, you're golden, okay? So, cyanuric acid. First off, what is it? Well, it's a stabilizer. And what does that mean? It's the sunscreen for chlorine. So think about the sunscreen that you put on. You put sunscreen on to protect your skin from UV rays. That's the exact same thing stabilizer will do for your chlorine. It oh goodness, protects the chlorine from the sun. Um, and so if you're an outdoor pool, you really need that. If you're indoor, not so much. Now you're like, what? Where do I get this? Like most chlorine already comes stabilized. So if you're using dichlor or trichlor, those are all stabilized chlorines. So if you're unsure, you can always go look at what type of chemical you're using if you already have stabilized chlorine or not. Or if you need it, you can reach out to whoever you get chemicals from. Why do we care though? Like why do I bring up cyanuric acid? Cyanuric acid, when you start getting above 100 parts per million, can cause something called chlorine lock. Chlorine lock means that your chlorine levels are going to read low, even though you have oodles of chlorine available because of the cyanuric acid in there is interfering with your test. So that's why we want to make sure that we are testing for cyanuric acid to make sure it's at the concentration that will prevent the chlorine from getting to chlorine lock, but also will help your chlorine from degrading it due to the sun. pH. Now, hopefully I can explain this in a way that makes sense because I know that some people think, oh, pH, high school chemistry, oh no. Hang with me, okay? pH is simply a scale, okay? That's all it is, it's a scale. If it's on the lower end, so from 1 to 7 is considered the acidic side, 7 to 14 is considered the basic side. So like lemon juice, it's a 3. Anything that makes you, or you give to your kids and you watch them get that reaction, because that's what I do to my nephews, that's acidic. On the other side is baking soda. That is more basic. So proper pH levels are going to prevent eye irritation, and that's what we're looking for. Remember, water quality, safety, and comfortability. Our eyes, pH is 7.5. Guess where we want our pH to be? Between 7.2 and 8.2. So 7.5 falls right into that category. Factors that affect pH, pee and sweat, disinfectants, where you get your water. This is one that has been a bigger issue as of late because water pH does change. And that's due to where we get our water and how water is getting treated at the plant. So if you're having pH issues, you might want to check and see what the water coming out of your hose into your pool is. So that way you kind of know where you're starting at. Things in the air can fall into the water, affect your pH. Water quality, which will be part of alkalinity, which is what our next one will be in evaporation. I hinted at this. Alkalinity and pH are buddies. So alkalinity is the measure of the ability of water to resist change in pH. So I don't know if any of you have ever been in PT, but that's what my first thing that I jumped to. They give you resistance bands. The first one is that really one that like you can stretch really well and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this all day. And then they're like, oh yeah, no, if you can do that all day, well, we're going to increase the resistance. And then you're like, I can't do this. Yeah, that's what alkalinity is. It's trying to resist that change in pH from having up and down and up and down. It's trying to help keep it into the level that we're wanting. Alkalinity must be kept between 60 and 180 milligrams per liter. Now, just so you know, milligrams per liter is another way to say parts per million. So don't get tripped up by that unit. So what happens if alkalinity is too high? Well, it causes your pH to increase. Now we have an environment that your chlorine or bromine doesn't like to function in, and so then it struggles to do its job. You have low alkalinity, so you have low pH. Now we're creating stress on the inside of the pool surface. The water pH and alkalinity causes the walls to break down and you can get flakes into your water. So that's another problem. So that's why it's important to keep it right at 60 to 180 parts per million. So we have two sets of ordinances, one for inside the Branson city limits, which is shown here, and then we also have one for outside of the city limits of Branson. So if you are in Branson, we have a chemical check sheet that will be available on our website as a reference tool. If you're outside of the county, make sure that you get the right one and don't get the Branson one because it's slightly different in the fact that spas have different criteria than pools do. You can see here that free chlorine and bromine both have higher concentrations. If you have a spa, you already know this. Spas eat chlorine like teenagers at a buffet, right? That's why we want a higher concentration to ultimately be able to protect our bathers, right? Again, you can get all of this information on our website with some resource sheets that we have there. Temperature, I get asked this a lot. What temperature should my pool be? So indoor pools should be between 72 and 85. Keyword should. I did not say must. I said should. The air temperature of the building that is holding your pool should be 2 to 5 degrees above whatever your water temperature is. That's going to help with humidity. That's going to help your pool area be able to survive longer and endure better. And it's also going to help your swimmers not have cold chills, because I've been that swimmer of having cold chills when I get out of people's pools. The one that is required is spa water temperature. Okay, it has to be 104 degrees or below. That's because when spas are above that temperature, we have two problems that are going to happen. One, people could fall asleep, and then they're going to slide under the water, and that's not a good thing. The second thing is when we start getting above 104 degrees, we could possibly start roasting proteins in our bodies, causing us to be very severely ill. Because think about it this way: if you have a fever of goodness above 104, your doctor's very concerned because the fact that your body can't handle that heat very long. So that's why there's also timers involved in all of that. So if we as inspectors come in and go, your spa is too hot, you need to turn it down, it's really important that you actually do that. So how do we monitor all of this? We use test kits and log sheets. So pool test kits. Every pool that is public access has to have a test kit that is able to measure the minimum and maximum values for disinfectants, pH, and alkalinity. So when I say minimum and maximum, I'm hoping you can see this, but this one, you'll look on that, this column right here, the chlorine only goes up to 5. Remember, we go all the way up to 10. So you're wanting to make sure you get a larger kit. The small one is for home use. This one's for public use. Okay, make sure you get the big one. How do I know if I have the right one? Okay, first off, this is the right one. Okay, Cl is chlorine, Br is bromine. You are wanting it to read at 10 parts per million, but you're also wanting it to be pink. Okay, if you have something that's yellow, these are called OTO kits. Those are not allowed per our codes in either jurisdiction, whether in Branson or outside of Branson. If you only use the dipsticks, these are also not allowed. They're highly inaccurate. So you need to have one of these. Do not have an at-home test kit. Get yourself a nice large one that goes all the way up to 10. Okay. Next thing, reagents. So the chemicals that come with the test kits, okay, are called reagents. Reagents are chemicals that are able to find levels of disinfectants, pH, alkalinity, whatnot. They must be marked with the date when you open them. They must be stored in a cool, dry location. I'm going to repeat that part again. Must be stored in a cool and dry location. Most pump rooms are not cool and dry. Most of pump rooms do not have air conditioning controls and are usually pretty doggone humid because we live in the Midwest. Do not keep your pool kits in your pool rooms because they're going to have problems surviving through the whole entire season. Take them inside. You probably have a maintenance shop. Just keep them in there. You need to replace your reagents every year because they do struggle to survive, whether that's due to contamination, heat, all of the things that are involved, and you should replace them every year. And believe it or not, all of those bottles have expiration dates on them. You should check those out. If you have something that is not valid, get rid of them. The other thing that's not on this list, if you buy the bulk bottles, do not refill the small ones. Those small ones do not get reused. You throw them away when they're empty, and you can use the bulk ones. Just use the bulk ones straight up. Do not use yours. Don't use the bulk. Fill up your smaller bottles just so that way they fit in your container better. Just use the bulk. Okay. Log sheets. So we've gone through all of these parameters. We've talked about test kits. This is the important part. Write it down. You must maintain pool logs on site for us as inspectors to check. Your records need to have at a minimum. If you have more than this, that's great. But at a minimum, it needs a date, it needs a time, it needs pH, it needs chlorine, both free, total, and combined, alkalinity, temperature, remarks and observations. That's if you add something, if you backwash something, if you think it looks hazy, whatnot, and then who did it. So you can be able to contact them if there's something that goes wrong the next day, and you can be like, did you do something? Okay. You as pool operators are in charge of making sure that your pool is in compliance with the ordinances that you're under, okay? So to protect the health of your guests, also so that way you don't fail at pool inspections, you should be testing and logging your chemicals more than once a day. Before you open the pool each day, throughout the day, at the end of the day. As we all know, water chemistry changes really quickly, especially if you have lots of people in the water, because they are bringing in detergents, sweat, all of the fun stuff that we've talked about causing issues with our water quality. It can change it rapidly. So that's why we really do encourage and stress to test it more often than once a day. If you add chemicals to your pool, log the chemical name and the amount to the log immediately. That's going to help the next person know that you should treat your pool. If you close the pool due to chemicals being out of compliance, you come in and you find out that your pool's at 0 parts per million chlorine. You decide to close it because you realize that's not safe. You need to record the time, record that you closed the pool. You need to treat the pool or spa. You let that work. And then when you decide, okay, it's ready to be reopened, you need to test and relog stating that chemicals are in compliance, opening it back up as of whatever time. This is to cover you guys, and so that way you guys have documentation. So, moving on to special cases related to water quality. Clarity. So on the right here, you can see this main drain right here, that black dot with the arrow right next to it. You can see it. You have no idea where the main drain is there. It's so cloudy you can't see it. You are required to be able to see that main drain cover at all times. From every part of the pool, you should be able to see it. I took a CPO class a couple months ago, and they were telling the story about how somebody had gotten attached to the main drain. It did not release like we talk about in the VBB video, and they ended up drowning. But due to it being cloudy, it took them 2 days to find the body because they did not know that they had a body in the deep end of the pool. So that's why we care about seeing that main drain. Again, the safety of your swimmers. The next one is algae. We do have a lot of outdoor pools here in Taney County, and so algae is something that you might fight. Algae are small plants that grow in or near water and do not have normal leaves. They're the slimy stuff. If you've ever gone into the lake and you slip and fall, I've done that before. It's not real fun, but most likely slipped on algae on the rocks. Okay, it can get into your pool. It turns that lovely shade of green. You can use algicides to prevent and kill that algae. Just make sure you follow the manufacturer instructions that are on that bottle because, as usual, every chemical is a little different. Now, because this is in person, I know that there's probably oodles of questions, or I didn't cover something, or you go, wait, what did she say? I'm confused. Please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We love to educate. We want to help you. If there's any way we can be able to provide you information to help you run your pool better, so that way when we come in and inspect you, you can pass with flying colors. That's what we want to do. We don't enjoy closing pools. So please reach out to us. The number is listed above, and if you have further questions, please let us know. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for listening.